If you have the money to spend, there is no end to the little knickknacks that you can spend a fortune on for bike handling. But if you're like most of us and you don't want to spend that much money, but you're also still looking for ways to improve your handling, then you've come to the right spot. Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Mitch. Thanks for checking out another video. We are back at the track today, and today we're talking about 5 no-cost bike handling tips. These things are completely free that you can do to the bike yourself. They're gonna help you. If you do one or any of these, it might help you be a little bit smoother, it might help you be a little bit faster on the track, and no matter which way you do it, they're definitely going to help you with handling. So roll the intro and let's get into it. So tip number 1 is going to be setting your sag, and you've probably heard of that before, making sure that your sag is set correctly, but maybe you don't really know what that means, or maybe you don't really know how important that actually is. So if you think of your bike riding level, now your sag is how much the rear end is going to sag when there's weight on it. So when it's on the stand like this, presumably that's at 0, right? When you take it off the stand and you've got it just sitting there, your sag, your owner's manual will say, but your sag should be set around 35-ish millimeters or so. And then there's the weight when you're actually in full gear and you're sitting on the bike with all of your equipment on, that's gonna be your other sag. Now, depending on where your sag is set, that can have big implications on how your bike actually rides. So if the sag is set too low, it's gonna be like this sort of Harley rider thing, right? And it's not gonna ride very well. You're not gonna be able to corner properly. And conversely, if your sag is set a little too stiff and there's not enough sag in there, your front end's gonna be, you're gonna be steering a lot with the front end. So if your sag is not set properly, your bike will definitely handle the way that it's not supposed to. Setting your sag is really easy. You can just check your owner's manual for that. I also have other videos on how to set the sag. I'll put the link below on how you can do that. Really simple to do, but that's tip number 1. So moving right along, tip number 2 is adjusting your fork height. Now, just like I talked about in tip number 1 with the sag, when you're adjusting your fork height, it's how high the forks actually sit in this triple clamp here. That's gonna matter just like your rear sag matters. If your forks are set too low or if they're set too high, your bike is gonna handle completely differently on one end of the spectrum versus the other. It comes down to a lot of preference, and there's a lot of things to know when setting the fork height, but you can check your owner's manual. It'll give you a really good starting point. So if those numbers are off even just a little bit and your fork height is not where it's supposed to be, then your bike's gonna handle improperly. So make sure you check your fork height. Tip 3, bar location and position. So on some of these newer bikes, you can set the bars forward or back. There's actual different mounting holes in there. That's pretty important when it comes to overall comfort as well as the handling. If you're a bigger guy, you might want the bars a little more forward, and you can just move it through these little holes in here, move the bars forward in the triple clamps, and that's gonna give you some more space to move around, which might be better for a bigger guy. Personally, I'm on the shorter side, so I like having them closer in, and it just feels a little better for me. Next up is the actual elevational positioning of the bars themselves. You can rotate them forward and back inside the triple clamps, inside the mounting brackets, which again will change your comfort level. If you have them really low, you might find that your elbows are tucked down and you might not be able to handle the bike as well. Conversely, if they're way too high, you might be over the front of the bike too much, and that can mess with your handling as well. So making sure your bar positioning forward or back in the actual mount on the triple clamp itself, as well as just how far they're rotated in or out, can have a big difference on your handling. So tip number 3, make sure your bars are in the right position. Okay, tip number 4, where you're sitting and when you're actually in the saddle of the bike. And that can have a big difference when it comes to your rider position and the geometry of the bike. Just like I explained with the sag and the fork height, where you're sitting on the bike is going to completely change how the bike handles as well. So if you think about if you're sitting too far back on the bike, that sag is going to be affected, right? Because the weight is more on the back of the bike. And if you're sitting way too far forward, there's not enough weight on the back of the bike. And that can have a big implication on how the bike's handling. So making sure that you're sitting in that proper position, so you have that proper rider triangle on the bike when you're cornering or when you're going down straightaways or off jumps or anything like that, that all matters when it comes down to bike handling. So have a look at yourself, maybe get a buddy to videotape you with a cell phone or your GoPro or whatever it is, and have a look to see where you're sitting on the bike in terms of your body positioning, and make sure that it looks good compared to some guys that you see on YouTube or on you know, the pros that you watch on Supercross or whatever, and just see where your body positioning compares to them. Maybe make some modifications. That's going to help big time. Lastly, tip number 5 is control position. So I touched on the bars on the forward mount, so you can put them a little bit or you can put them back like I have them, as well as how the bars are actually rotated. But one thing that a lot of people don't think about is the actual levers position and the control position. So what I mean is how far up or high or down, in and out the levers are can help the bike handle a lot better. And additionally, on top of that, the actual throttle tube. This is something that a lot of people don't think about. How much play do you actually want in that throttle? A lot of times I hear about guys that it's way too stiff, like they when they're just riding around, there should be a little bit of movement in that, so you're not constantly blipping the throttle when you don't really mean to. And that can even be just the smallest little bit will make a difference in how the bike handles through corners, because you're applying power or not applying power if it's too loose in the positions in the parts of the corner that you don't really want to. So making sure that your lever controls and everything are set up properly so it's not super far away, so you don't have to do this big grab to get your lever. They're not too high, they're not too low. Making sure you have the right amount of play in your throttle tube, so there's just a little bit there, but not an overly large amount. Those are all things that are going to help you when it comes to improving your bike handling. So there you have it. There are 5 tips for no-cost bike handling. I guarantee you, if you do any one of these, or better yet, do all 5 of these, it is going to help you on the track. You will notice a big difference in how your bike is handling. Maybe you can go for longer on the track. It'll definitely save energy. Your corner speed will be better. You'll find the bike tracks better in corners. It goes where you want it to, all over, all around. It's going to help you out a lot. I hope you liked the video. Hope it helped in some way. Hit that subscribe button for me. You know I appreciate it. It's time for me to get out here. The track is fresh. Not a single person has ridden on it yet. I'm going to get out and do some riding. We'll see you in the next video.